We're Grace. Thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight. It's very exciting to have you here, and we've got some photo ops already. So we'll let you take it away, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks for having me in. Just an opportunity to come in and address you all. We've had a little bit of a conversation about some of the challenges that we've been having from the U.S.-Mexico border impacting us here in Wisconsin. Just maybe talk about that just a little bit in this broader region for a minute, and then be happy to answer any questions people have if you like. But in particular, when we see the problems that we face at the U.S.-Mexico border, the impact that that has here in our community is pretty real. I think there's two key aspects to this. One is the flow of drugs that have come across into our communities. There's two aspects to this. One is fentanyl in particular, which, as many of you know, is a very small amount can kill you. Effectively, think of it as a handful of grains of salt that's often being laced into other drugs that are coming through. As we think about this on a county basis, Racine and Kenosha County both had more than 50 people die from fentanyl-related overdose death last year. So that is, think about that as a school bus of individuals in Racine County, a school bus in Kenosha County who died as a result of this. It's a drug that's designed in China, produced in Mexico, and then trafficked across both through legal ports of entry, but also through illegal crossings as well. We also see a pretty significant impact in Wisconsin and across the country, but in particular in southeast Wisconsin as it relates to the impact of migrants relocating to this area. And so Terry and I, we were talking previously about the impact that this is having in Whitewater, Wisconsin. So just to scale this for you, Whitewater is a city, many of you are probably familiar with it. Whitewater is a city of about 15,000 people. In Whitewater, the chief of police wrote a letter to the president citing that they believe they have roughly 1,000 migrants who've relocated to the community of Whitewater. I'm actually of the view that it's probably higher than that, but he said 1,000, so we'll take it. The impact that that's having in the community is pretty significant. I've met and talked with first responders, both EMS as well as the police department, the way that they've been impacted by that, and the volume of calls that have increased. We also see it in the school board. So the school board of Whitewater, rough numbers here, school board of Whitewater, roughly 2,000 students. And in the past 2 years, they've added about 200 students, primarily from Nicaragua and Venezuela. And one of the big challenges that the Whitewater School Board has faced because of that is often the students that arrive, their age doesn't match their academic achievement on a US basis. So think about this as maybe a 10-year-old boy who in the US would be in 5th grade, who arrives with a 2nd or 3rd grade level of education, but also speaks Spanish and doesn't speak English as their first language. It's a unique burden, a unique challenge on the school board. And so the challenges that this has been placed both on the school board, but on first responders and on the community has been significant. And then if I can just go back on the drug side for a second, one of the things that we've seen is through the flow of drugs, the Walworth County Sheriff's Department notified that they have tracked $250,000 that has gone from the city of Whitewater to the Mexican Gulf Cartel. It's one of the large drug cartels in Mexico. So when we think about the impact of border policy in Wisconsin, the impact that it's having is not just on border communities, it's impacting us here in Wisconsin. At the federal level, there's ways to address this. I'll leave this and I'd be happy to answer a couple of questions if that works for you. I want to be respectful of your time. The border policies that we could put in place today under current law, there's 4 key things I think you could do that address about 80% of the problem. You'd end catch and release, and you'd end abuse of the parole system. You'd reinstate stay in Mexico, and you'd restart border wall construction immediately. All of that's available to be done today. On top of that, there's a handful of things I think we should put in place that would further restrict and gain situational control at the border. But at the end of the day, the policies that are being put in place that allow the border to remain unsecured is having a real and substantive impact on us in Wisconsin. And so, Terry, I know you kind of want a little bit of an update. Happy to have done that, but happy to also answer any questions that you or anybody else has to the amount of time that you guys have and allow. So thanks for having me in.
Yeah, I wanted, everyone to have a chance to maybe ask some questions about that. I know I'm always concerned because we have many of our neighbors and friends that their kids go to Whitewater.
Mhm.
So I've heard some of the issues that are going on there and, you know, some of the things that we maybe need to do, to prepare ourselves. I know it's coming right down Highway 20. So just to put it out there for anyone who may have any questions, for you or about anything else, actually.
In the back, yeah?
First of all, thanks for providing the time, Congressman. It's much appreciated. Question that I have, and we got a connection here with my wife who started a not-for-profit organization in Milwaukee. She's gonna hit you up and drop something off for you to take with you and hopefully take a look at. With the increase in reckless driving and the deaths. And I guess there's no way to otherwise to say it, lenient sentences and things being handed out in the judiciary. So they've initiated a court watch, been on TV, helped get a state bill passed by 14. But as a backdrop, talking about Whitewater, thinking about we're out here in water. The increase in crime as a result of the illegal immigration. Anything that you know can share relative to Whitewater? I mean, I remember, I do recall a letter from the mayor, police chief. Food pantries were empty, and it's a concern. Living in the town, and we live in the woods.
Great question, and happy to get any information you have afterwards, as well. One of the challenges, in my conversations with both people that are on the force in Whitewater, as well as talking to some leadership there, is a lot of their time is being utilized in ways that it didn't used to be. So a lot of the proactive work that the law enforcement agency in Whitewater used to do, they don't have that flexibility for the proactive work. They're doing a lot more reactive work. And you can see that in some of the numbers. So if you look at traffic tickets per your reference to reckless driving and others, a lot of the proactive work the police department would have done would have been to be out on patrol and kind of looking for violations. They're now engaged in very different type of work, reacting to calls that are coming in as it relates to the influx of the migrant population. And so because of that, the type of work that they're doing is shifted. And so what they're in the letter and in those conversations, a lot of what they're looking to do is to say, how do we get back to the proactive policing that we want to do to keep the community safe? And so some of the challenges that they face have been, you know, some unique instances. You have individuals, for example, in particular, people that aren't speaking English as their first language. If an individual like that gets pulled over, it requires a translator, right? There's additional work that has to be done. Now you have a large number of individuals that are not insured or not licensed to drive, which has been a challenge in Whitewater as well. So I'd say the biggest aspect of it is probably twofold. It's one, the shift in the type of police work that's being required in Whitewater. And then two, the illegal flow of drugs and the proven money that has been going back to Mexican drug cartels, the Gulf cartel in this case, which is one of the major Mexican drug cartels, has also been of significant concern to the law enforcement agencies in Walworth County. Sure.
Being on Social Security every year, you know, we get a cost of living increase, but everything's going up a lot more than that.
Big time.
An example is We Energies was 6.some%, and I'm sure my Social Security is not gonna go up that much this year. Is there any plans for increasing Social Security, or what can we do?
The number one answer is to bring inflation down.
Well, yeah,
So the answer to this long term, right? And so seniors on fixed incomes in particular have been clobbered under the inflation that we've seen. So inflation, rough math, everything's 20% more expensive than it was 4 years ago. And as the COLA adjustment Social Security moves, it never feels like it keeps up with the real cost inflation that's out there. And that's exactly what you're referencing. The long-term answer to this is to bring inflation down. And so what brought us inflation is really aggressive, reckless spending in the first 2 years of the Biden administration. To unwind inflation, you gotta do, to me, more than just control spending. Control spending is one. Two is you have to look at the regulatory burdens that are coming out of Washington. Often people talk about regulations as a tax, but there's no revenue from it. So really, it's just inflationary because those costs get passed on to everybody else. And that's a driver in the cost you see. So if you think about why are new cars so much more expensive, in large part, it's regulations coming out of Washington telling you what type of car to drive, rather than in addressing those regulations can bring the inflationary environment down. And then third is energy policies. And so, right, coming out of the beginning, we saw really aggressive anti-domestic energy policies coming out of DC. Keystone XL pipeline is just a prime example we'll think about. When that was killed, that was a signal of not a discouraging investment in that space. We did an all of the above energy approach in the US. And if we do that, we address the regulatory burden, we address the spending, we can bring inflation down. And as inflation comes down, the COLA adjustments for our seniors who are dependent on Social Security will feel a lot better. And so that's where I think a lot of the energy should be put in while we work on the financial side to make sure we're protecting Social Security and Medicare for our seniors, in particular those in and those approaching retirement age, so that that program is solvent and will be for time to come.
I just had an experience. I was traveling on business through the Cleveland airport. And probably, I'm gonna count at 25. I'm gonna assume illegals, 2 TSA agents, like had them like walled off, walked them in front of me through the security checkpoint. You know, they had, all of them had passports, and new clothes, and you name it. And none of them could speak a lick of English either. Interpreter with them. You know, you kind of just sit there and you go, how do we stop it? I'm not saying they don't belong in the country, but come in the right way, like my great-great-grandfather did. I don't want to sound racist, so please, about tap dancing, I'm trying to be fair to everybody, but I mean, it's a problem.
So and I think you speak to, we're a country of immigrants, right? It's Columbus Day, which to me is a comment on the history of immigration in the United States. It's not that we're opposed, or I'm not opposed to immigration. I don't think we should be as a country. We're opposed to chaos. And so it's saying that there is a structure and a system in which we should allow people to come into the country. But what you need to do is have a structure and a system. And so what we've seen at the US-Mexico border is really chaotic. I've been there a number of times. I've been to the US-Mexico border. I've talked to Border Patrol agents. I've seen the apprehensions. I've spent a lot of time in this space. And so my comment earlier about what you do and how you unwind this, abuse of the parole system is what I think is one of the most misunderstood aspects of how you actually solve the underlying problem. And so just to conceptualize this, I'll take a minute, because if that's all right, if I still got, okay. There are two key buckets of how people are coming in the United States. The vast majority of people, when they come across, in the Rio Grande for most of the year is about knee deep, right? I mean, you can wade across the once they come across and are onto US soil, if you make a valid asylum claim, doesn't mean it's true, just mean the claim is valid. You are then brought in, and usually within 72 hours, a large number of those individuals are just paroled in the United States. When I say end abuse of the parole system and stop abuse of this, what's happening is somebody will come into the United States and say they'll turn themselves in voluntarily. They look to be apprehended, and they'll say, the individual will say, I have a reasonable belief of, nobody says I have a reasonable belief of anything unless you've been coached by an attorney. And so a lot of these people have been coached on exactly what to say. And then they are released into the United States with a court date that's often 4, 5, 6, 7 years out. And so if you adjudicate the claim of asylum, meaning you go before a judge, the overwhelming majority of those are rejected. But the date to do that is years into the future. And so what the Biden administration has done is throttled the number of judges that we have at the border hearing these claims. The court dates have moved way out, and those individuals are then released. Well, once they're released with what I'm using the term valid asylum claim, which is the technical term, they're released. they have freedom of movement and they are here with a legal authority, not meaning that they didn't enter the country legally. But they then can travel throughout the United States just as you and I can under current law. And so to end abuse of the parole system, what I mean by that gets a little, it's not overly technical. Sometimes I'm just simple in my terms. What I mean by that is you need to actually hear the case at that location. So you end catch and release. So if Joe Blow comes in and says they have an asylum claim, we say, well, let's review the claim. And if you have a valid claim, if you were the individual that stood up to communist dictator Xi Jinping in China, and you are fighting to end a communist totalitarian regime in China, and you actually stood in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square, right? That type of action. That's a valid asylum, right? That man or woman is fighting for democracy, and that is why we created asylum. There are those cases, they're not common, right? The vast majority of people are simply trying to avoid the legal system to come into the United States where you apply for the right to immigrate to our country. And so addressing this in what you kind of I don't know the specific case of what you saw, but often those individuals are then brought through, and it's what we call NGOs, non-government organizations. And a lot of charities that are involved in this are being paid by the federal government to bring those folks and house them all across the country. So the answer to this, in my opinion, is you end that catch and release system, you end the abuse of the parole system, and you say, if you have a claim, claim it in your home country. Go to the US Embassy in your home country, Nicaragua, Venezuela, wherever. File the paperwork. Wait till the court case is heard. And if you are that individual that has a valid asylum, then you're allowed. We have asylum laws for a reason. But the overwhelming majority of people will not find a success. And if you think of this as a business model, which it is to the Mexican drug cartels, which you would have asked me when I first went down there 5-6 years ago, and I asked the Border Patrol agent, rough math, what are people paying the cartels to come? They would have said, that's somewhere $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. If you go down there today and you say, what are they paying to come? They will tell you, Brian, it's $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So that's a business, right? So 1 million people at $10,000, that's a multi-billion-dollar international human trafficking business, a legal business, but an evil business, but a business. And so those drug cartels, if we broke this, meaning we actually adjudicated these claims and returned people to their country of origin who don't have a valid claim, they're not going to be paying the Mexican drug cartel to allow them to come into the United States in the first place. And so you got to break that business model, and you will gain, rough math, 80% control, in my opinion, of the border. And then there's other stuff we have to do to get the final 20%. But the fact that there's no control and the chaos that's there, and the impact that that's having on individuals who are crossing into the United States is very significant. I mean, I've been there. I saw a 15-year-old girl, and if I shared with you the story of what happens to a 15-year-old girl and how she pays back the $10,000 to Mexican drug cartel, that doesn't make your stomach churn. You don't understand what's going on. And so this is broader of a challenge than we face, but the policies to fix it are actually available and present to us. We just have to have the political courage from enough people in DC to implement it and to force it to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you all having me in. Busy time of year for me, but appreciate you all having me in and stay in touch, and I'll make sure I get some information from you and your wife before I come out. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Good to see you. Thanks. Oh, sorry. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
5-minute break. Call this meeting of the Waterford Town Board to order Monday, October 14th, 2024 at 5:50 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's start with the approval of the town board minutes dated September 9th, 2024. Special meeting minutes dated September 10th, 17th, 19th, 20th, 30th, and October 3rd, 2024 as printed. We've been busy. Motion please.
I'll make a motion to approve them as printed. I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report. As October 1st, general and tax checking, 53,898.07 cents. General operating money market, 447,866.85 cents. Reserve funds, 1,528,512.06 cents. And the undesignated ARPA recovery funds, 172,870.11 cents. And we need a motion to approval to pay claims, please.
Make a motion to approve them as printed. I'll second that motion.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
There is a slight delay with Tim, so, if we just give me like a second when you guys make that motion, because then Tim kind
Yeah.
of comes in late.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we have Mr. Tony Spence here from the Waterford Graded School District. If you'd like to come forward and get your microphone, please. How are you?
Great, thank you. I'm going to hold on to the microphone, and also along with me is our board president, Mandy Feewig. And we'll like to get started. I apologize to have my back to the group here, but we'll make this quick. First of all, thanks for letting us be here. Again, I'm Tony Spence. I'm the superintendent for the Waterford Graded School District. Again, we're the K-8 district just down the road, and I know most people know that, but I just want to always clarify every chance we get to do that. I'm going to start off actually, and Mandy, if you don't mind,
Sure.
I'm going to have you share that with any members of the board. Keeping this very analog, so again, no technology involved, and what you've got in front of you is just a presentation, and it's nothing that I'm going to walk through with every single slide, but I'm going to give some highlights on what's happening. Just a quick follow-up. In April, the Waterford Graded School District did go to operational referendum, and referendums are tough enough, let alone an operational. And again, an operational is about keeping the district functioning and operating and open. It's not about building something. For us, it's not about expanding anything. This is just about making sure that we can continue to provide a high-quality education for all of our students. And of course, be a destination district for our families too, as they come to wonderful Waterford. Just as a reminder, I've been living in the community for 10 years. I live in the village. Mandy, I know you live in the town. So we certainly have our own kids who have gone through the school district. So it's not just a professional obligation, but also a personal one. The unfortunate side of not passing the referendum in April meant that the district had to make some pretty tough decisions. And that's not anything unique. Actually, 87% of school districts in the state of Wisconsin have either gone to referendum and are under one for operational, have asked or are asking here in November. And so it's not something unique again to Waterford, but up until April, the Waterford Graded School District had not gone to operational referendum. So that's a pretty big threshold to step over for us. And as a result of not passing, we had to make 1.75 million in cuts. And I think some of the apprehension typically is that, well, that doesn't pass the first time, and you're just going to keep asking until you have to make those cuts. And we're in a position where we no longer can wait. And we had to make those. And it was over 12 staff just in this past spring, as well as significant changes to insurance, significant changes to employee benefits, and also some of the increase in fees, and also both rental fees, and also for the participation in co-curricular and sports for our students. And again, some of those seem very reasonable. But again, it's just more money is being put on the shoulders of families and of course being put on for our staff members and losing staff too. We've got a few classrooms now that sit empty. And actually our middle school went from 487 students to 515 students in just this past year. Our enrollment overall in the district is about even, which is actually a good sign because there's 45,000 fewer students attending public schools in the state of Wisconsin this year. So it's a pretty significant number to be flat for us, but also with the building of Trailside Landing right next to our Trailside Elementary School, that's obviously going to have an impact as well. So with those cuts, again, they were very significant and dare I even say devastating to the system, but we're still not out of the woods yet. We're facing about a $1.47 million deficit again coming up still. And the fact is, we can continue to make cuts, but what we were able to do was try to hold the line on what we cut so that we weren't getting into our programs. And I'll get to that in just a little bit, but I'm going to hand the microphone over to Mandy to talk a little bit about what our next upcoming referendum is for November.
Good evening again. I'm Mandy Fewake, School Board President, a lifelong resident of the area. Love this community and I'm proud to be here. So thank you. And so despite what Tony had mentioned earlier, with all those budget cuts that we did institute this past spring and for this coming school year, we still face a pretty large deficit and will need to be coming for referendum again in November. So what we are asking for is $3 million per year for the next 4 years. As you know, our last referendum was $4 million for 5 years. So we made a lot of changes in the budget, did a lot of cuts and also listened to the voters. So coming back and asking for $3 million per year for the next 4 years. This will help address our minimum deficit of 1.5 million and a cumulative deficit of 9.7 million over the next 5 years. This deficit may continue to grow. As we know, we just talked about inflation, right? Continuing and rising costs. So that deficit could increase. And also with the lack of state funding. Our projected fund balance, so the money that we use to help pay the bills right now would be at 12.53%, and our school board policy is 25%. So we'd be looking to replenish some of that money so that we do not have to do short-term borrowing, which is also going to impact our taxpayers, something we are looking at needing to do this year.
The third part of this is people have asked for a lot more information on is what will happen if a referendum does not pass. And I think it's fair that we share a bit more of that. In the past, it was of concern because sometimes you have to wait and see. In fact, we made insurance changes that happened within a month's time of the decision we had to make. Those savings were significant, so it's nothing you want to do in haste, but certainly we're trying to be as advanced as we can be. The biggest changes are going to be in programming and staffing. And when we start to look at things like music, art, and Fayette, we're starting to look at what are the minimums that are required by state and federal law. And I think no one wants to be at a minimum, bless you. No one wants to be at a minimum. People, again, bless you, sorry. Nobody wants to be at a situation where they feel minimum is why you come to Waterford. It is not why you come to Waterford. Thinking out, we renovated our middle school. It's a beautiful school, something we're very proud of every single day. It's not just a place to be proud of, it's a place where great things happen. But the old gym, if you've ever been to Waterford Middle School, is now the Fab Lab. It's where tech ed happens in our schools. We have a beautifully renovated family consumer science lab too. And those are areas that potentially are on the docket for being cut. We also have world language that happens in our elementary schools. Early exposure is a key. So we're not learning that for the first time or having exposure for the first time. That's potentially being cut. Related arts, which again are music, art, Fayette, being cut from our 4K programs. It might not seem so important, but again, that's an opportunity for our kids. Why come here? Why be different? This will obviously have an impact on the size of our classes. The more we cut for staff, the larger those class sizes are going to be. We already have class sizes at our middle school, particularly in the 8th grade, that are between 30 and 31 on average. So we have 180 students and we have 6 general ed teachers there. Now there are related arts classrooms, but again, those are at stake of potentially being cut. We've already had to cut school counselors, but that's another potential. Looking at secretary 2 positions, which we have 2 secretaries, they don't do the same thing. Not only do we have coverage in the offices, but we also have to make sure that our students, when they need to receive triage help services, that's who they go to see. And it's a pretty important thing to have, but it has to be there. Library aid reductions, our libraries will have to simply be closed or not open as often. And that would be a shame for not only just the access to those books, but also just in general, how great of a place that is. Looking at support staff and even district office administration, that would be another place. And then also building administration, which would include principals. It's not something that any of these cuts would be ideal. In fact, these would be very difficult. But at the same time, that's to the point we're at. I'll add a few more details and we'll wrap up shortly. So the other part is that this would affect things like late start. If these related arts are not options for during the day, then the preparatory time that's needed by teachers would have to be instituted. Our neighbors, Burlington, as an example, had to do that. And that would mean, like, imagine 17 weeks out of the year, so roughly every other Wednesday, having a late start. And it isn't for any particular reason other than the fact that that's a professional development opportunity time and a preparatory time for certified staff. Other pieces that we probably have to look at summer school. We had our 3rd year of summer school, and it's the first time in the grade that we've had it. It's been a wonderful addition. In fact, we've had over 400 kids in seats in summer school this summer alone, which is incredible for our community. But that would likely have to be a cut. An increase in fees or even cutting sports and programs. And at some point, we will have to look at redistricting an organization. That's not just budget dependent, but we may have to look at whether we redistrict or we reorganize. In other words, you may have schools that are 4K through 1st, 2nd through 3rd, and then 4th through 5th. And again, that isn't just a budgetary thing, but there are savings that can come with it. I want to give one more piece of information about this. All the things that I've mentioned are not all the things that are automatically cut. Okay, just to be clear. Those are all the things that would be considered if we need to. And again, it's looking at our minimums. What are the areas that are there? And you can tell a lot of them are programs. Mandy, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you kind of walk through just some of the upcoming events, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, sure. So on Thursday, we will be doing a Facebook Live session with the school board members. That's at 6:30.
Wednesday, sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wednesday. Sorry, Wednesday, my days are all mixed up right now. So Wednesday, we'll be doing a Facebook Live with the school board members at 6:30. So tune into that. On Thursday, then we have a listening session at Trailside Elementary that starts at 5:30. And that is a really great opportunity. We had one last week at Woodfield, and it's not just a presentation on the referendum. It's kind of getting feedback from community members. Like, what are we doing well? What are some things we can improve in as a school district and community? So it was a really great time at Woodfield. So I really hope people will take advantage of that and come to Trailside on Thursday. And then on October 23rd, there will be a referendum presentation at the library at 5 p.m. And then on October 28th, a school board referendum update presentation at 6 p.m. And is that?
Our annual meeting.
Okay, that the annual meeting. Yes. All right. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there are any questions or any other thoughts. I know we've given plenty of information.
I just want to say, Tony, I know I spoke with you about a year and a half ago. When the development was going to start right by the
Yes.
school, we talked about that. We talked about just about concerns about capacity and where you were, where you might end up, because that's pretty high density that they're looking at putting there. And as a person who worked for Waterford Graded for a while, I understand just having 25 to 27 in a classroom is a lot. So I know we had talked about that, the student teacher ratio, and what you're looking at for the future, especially with high density and maybe other development going on. Everyone needs to be aware of that and what's happening for the future. So the more information you can give yourselves, please do.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Question in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, a question.
Mr. Finn, my name's Dan Egan. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, it's okay.
Maybe you could answer this. I bet you've been on the spot once or twice in your life, but recently I read a report from the Badger Institute,
Okay.
which is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit organization. But what it ended up, it was very recent, and they had a number of topics, but one of the topics was MPS and the recent problem with MPS and what they ended up finding out. And so the state was made a special additional allocation to MPS. One of the results was a reduction in the state funding or aid that was going out to just about every other school district in the state. I didn't see Waterford, but I saw Tomahawk, they were talking about getting an 18% reduction of guano, they were saying too. Any idea of what's
Yeah.
coming down?
I'll give you the short, two of them, glad you brought it up. The number for that actually comes out tomorrow morning. So we get estimates of what that's supposed to be. We'll call them 8 estimates. And the 8 estimates for every district across the land will definitely be impacted by NPS. Of course, it's the largest district in the state. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate what happened there. I'm not trying to pass any judgment, but more so, yes, we'll have a ripple effect. So we're not necessarily bracing, but we are understanding there may be a reduction there. And so we've given our best, guess estimates of what we both are getting, and then hoping for what happens tomorrow to not be terrible news, and hopefully be news close to what we've estimated. But yes, it will have an impact.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for asking the question.
Anybody else? I thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you very
time. Really
much.
appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Hey, moving along, I don't see Mr. Horace here. Is anybody here for Mr. Horace?
Bill Street and Grant. Oh, I'm sorry,
Does Tim have anything for?
in case you guys want to be
I
the supervisor.
No, I do not. I thought Greg would be there.
Okay, no, Tim did not have anything, no.
Police department, we don't have any stats tonight. We can make those available by tomorrow if anyone needs those. We just didn't have time to get those together for tonight. Michigan Fire, we didn't have anyone available. The one that was gonna come is in the hospital, so I don't know what happened. I'm not sure. I hope he's okay. I'm soon.
Nothing from Waterford.
Nothing from Waterford. WWMD?
There you go.
You need to come up with.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Microphone's all you.
Hi, Bill McCormick, WWMD. Just want to report that this past week, last week on October 8th, we did some fish stocking for the first time, my understanding, for our organization, where we stocked 2,000 walleye and 1,000 smallmouth bass into Lake Michigan. So we're excited to be doing that. We're going to be trying that for the next 3 years. That's the plan. And then see from feedback from fishermen, perhaps DNR with their surveys to see how that's progressing and how successful that program is. As far as our equipment is concerned, our operations for weed harvesting that stopped at the end of August, and all the equipment has been put away. So we're really just preparing for winter. So there's not much to report after that. I will say that we do the DNR in order to get our permit renewed for weed harvesting. That's a mechanical permit. That's a 4-year permit. We have to go and revise a portion of our aquatic plant management plan, which will cost us approximately $35,000. We're in the process of working with the DNR to try and apply for a grant to cover hopefully 50% of that cost. So that's all I have. Any questions?
I'm sorry, it was part of your
Aquatic plant management plan.
thank you.
New elected commissioners.
Yeah, nobody's changed.
Luke is new, actually. Sorry.
Correct. Yeah, Luke is now part of the appointed.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for Park and Road, we have Kenny out on surgery. Dale, did you have anything to report on that?
Yeah, I spoke with Jim and Ken Ulinick this morning, and I have a few things to report, and if I miss anything, I'm sure Jim can jump in. Hidden Harbor, if anybody's here from there, they're supposed to start Tuesday, 10:15, and they should finish November 1st. Miller Road, we're waiting for the Highway 20 program to finish, so they can get access for the equipment to come in. That should only be a day or so, so I hope we're able to get that in this fall. The DPW is also looking at a box scraper grader for the park ball diamonds and infields. And I'll mention that a little bit later when we talk about the finish more under new business. I spoke with Ken Hintz, who's out on medical leave. If everything goes well, he's expecting to come back on November 7th. And we got some bad news. Terry, maybe you can help us out on this. Remember that dreaded culvert issue on Highway K, or on Highway 36 and
Back
Kramer?
and forth. I see it's ours now.
After Representative Woodkey said it was the county's responsibility, now the county is apparently telling our DPW that it's our responsibility, which seemed totally absurd. So if you could get a hold of Mr. Woodkey and maybe do your magic again and try to get that turned around, because it's caved in again, and I don't think the responsibility for a 100-foot culvert along Highway 36 should be the town responsibility. And that's all I have for now. Again, we'll talk about the Finnish war and a couple of other things down under new business. Anything else you want to add, Jim?
Yeah, that culvert, Kramer that you were talking about, we checked out Wood, Gavin, East River Bay, 2 culverts. They were all replaced by the county when they did the 2013 project. So there's this precedent set out there.
State highways to take care of
Yeah.
culverts on town roads.
We could probably find more too.
Okay,
So I don't understand where they're coming from.
should be helpful when you talk to Representative Woodkey for that, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I did have
Jim.
a question was,
Gavin and Wood.
Gavin, Wood, East River Bay, 2 of them on East River Bay. Beach,
the question's been brought up, and I just wanna make a comment while we're talking about that whole Idlewood, Sandy, the private road, we've got, just to mention it, it's been brought up, we need to come to some kind of resolution. Is that an anomaly that we can help repair or not? So that's just something that needs to be in the forefront, that we need to figure it out, yes or no, and move along. So I'm working on Mike with that, and we'll work on that.
so they're
And
gonna
I know I
start,
asked you if we have others like that in the town.
we couldn't find one that we were aware of. And they're gonna start milling the 16th, which would be Wednesday. So if something's gonna get done, it should get done by the 16th. And I know that's sure. It wasn't put into the original plan.
Oh,
The agenda has a salt shed.
I was just gonna say, the salt shed, I believe we're waiting on.
No, yeah, that's down under new business.
That's under program.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's under-
It's right now.
Yeah, actually it is. Right now. So,
Right under, road.
Yeah.
I spoke with Jim and Ken Uhlenhake, and we took a look at the salt shed. If you recall, a year or so ago, our DPW did some reinforcing on some of the pillars on the east side of the building with some new treated 2x12s and lag bolts, which looks like it's really doing a great job in holding. If you, I think, Bob, I think we took a walk around the salt shed, and if you look at the south wall, there's just a little bit of bulging above the door tracks. But we don't fill the salt shed more than half full in the back. We don't push the salt way up to the rafters. The general consensus is that this shed will be in good shape for many years to come. We can always get extra salt from the county if we need to, but we don't need to fill the thing all the way full, and I don't think we need to spend $20,000 or more on repairing that. So that's the general consensus. So I would recommend that we not repair the salt shed at this time.
Perhaps put that on kind of the back burner, if there's anything ARPA left that needs to be designated.
Yeah, perhaps if there's, if we have no other option, that's a good suggestion.
I think there's other options to look at. I mean, we've got the driveway going into Station 2 off of Highway 83 is in very bad shape. Parking lot in front of Town Hall is my next one. And even the woods on the side of Station 2 waves at you when you look at it. So I know Kenny was supposed to get some pricing on that a while back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what, I'm not sure.
We'll keep that in mind for the future and see where it lands.
Just to point out that we're rapidly running out of time on the ARPA.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And to clarify, Tina, we need bids in writing by December 31st. It can't just be an idea, it has to be
It has
something
to
that
be
is
contractor.
contract or,
So it's gotta even be earlier than with the bids. We need to have some.
Yeah, we can wait till the end of the month certainly, but, probably by.
And the way
the
things are going
December
on
town
around
board
here. I
meeting,
would
we
wait.
should- By the December
Yeah.
town board meeting or at our budget meetings, we need to nail that down, so yeah, there's not much time left, and it's, a once in a lifetime opportunity to get some money to help us out.
Okay. Tim, if you give me your town planning commission recommendations.
And Tim wasn't, there was a glitch in there. I'm not sure if Tim,
Oh,
I'm gonna unmute Tim now.
Yeah, there
Oh,
was
just-
not, I couldn't get on for the planning commission, so I don't know what was consistent during that meeting.
okay, we just had a peer permit and a conditional use permit, which you talked about, ongoing problems.
Since the peer permit is handled by the planning commission, I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for TV materials, 3612 Buena Park Road, for the, gravel operation there.
I'll second that.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Abstain, I
Opposed?
wasn't part of it.
Okay, new business, we have Cheryl Kovac for the no engine braking at Highway 160. Come forward, please, state your name and address.
My name is Cheryl Cuddyback. I'm a resident of the town of Waterford. We live at 4406 Northwest Highway, not 164. So that's what you have on here.
I was given. I didn't have anything. in writing
We're
from
on,
you.
we're on Northwest Highway. That, the house address is 4406. When the highway department redid 83, they did not remove the crest in the road going to the north of our property. They have reduced the speed limit coming in from the north to 40 miles an hour, and we're very happy about that. However, because of that crest and the oncoming traffic sees the reduction in speed, they do the engine brake thing and they coast all the way down to the curve on 83 by the Cotton Exchange. We have 380 feet of frontage on our property. Our house is only 40 to 45 feet off of the road, and the engine braking is actually rattling our windows. So I would like to propose no engine braking sign or whatever is required for the sound ordinances for the town of Waterford. I did contact the highway department, and they told me that a letter should be sent to the Department of Public Works to attention Brian Jensen, stating the type of sign and the location where it would be required. And also a request for a permit with Karen Martins at the highway department to issue the permit to install the sign. Now, she said the cost would be about $25 for the sign, maybe like $75 for the post, et cetera, and then the future maintenance of the sign would be then put onto the town of Waterford for maintenance for that. So I do have one neighbor that's across the street. His address is 4419 Northwest Highway, Dennis Rogowski. His house is pretty close to the road, the same as mine. I've spoken to him about it. He did not want to participate in my request, but he certainly would benefit. And the other neighbor that is behind me is Kevin Ketterhagen, but their home is up on the hill, so they're not as affected. So I would just like to propose getting a sign.
Sounds reasonable.
Being a state highway, do we have any authority over it?
Well, I said they have to contact Brian Jensen and they'd have to approve it at the county level. It's my understanding that they would pay for the sign and the post, but we'd have to.
We would have to pay. I mean, I personally would pay for it just to get the sign. I'm desperate. I mean, we've lived here 46 years, and when we moved in, obviously the Cotton Exchange was still the dairy barn, and the highway or the track, the traffic twofold, since we've moved in. And now with the Highway 20 detour, the traffic has even increased even more. So I'd like to get a sign. I don't know that it's going to really help, but hopefully it would, and won't rattle my.
To put a sign up, would that require a no engine braking ordinance in order for them to?
There is a sound ordinance. I looked that up for the town of Waterford. There is a sign. So all vehicles.
And engine braking goes a little bit farther than noise, because you can still have engine braking and maybe it doesn't meet the sound threshold, but the engine braking itself would then violate the ordinance without having to have a police
Well, it's
officer with
quite loud.
a decibel meter.
It's.
We're looking at a state highway here.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if we're putting any sign up.
Right, well, we'll talk to Brian.
I don't know if we will be putting any sign up. Certainly we can support this. Please asking for, but I don't know, if we do, then I think. I don't know if we have any jurisdiction. That will.
Yeah.
Can we figure it out?
Today.
Not.
Yeah.
Sure. We can get a hold of the county and talk to them.
We did a similar thing on the 164. That's what I thought you were looking, when the first at 164. When the streetlights went down. When they redid the road on 164, they took out Wisconsin Electric Power, took down all those street poles. And we had put them all back up. Okay, we just did it basically, because people wanted it. So there's little authority for it. Not that much.
Make a motion to pass a resolution to support putting the sign up and taking whatever action is necessary to further this cause.
So we can do it right in a minute.
I did drive around and there is a sign on 20 coming into town and it's just a cornfield. No house there. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion in a second. Any more discussion?
is there any other information required from me? I do have a folder with pictures. So,
Thank you. Can you leave your information with Tina, please?
Yeah, because I never got.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank
Whatever,
you.
she just thought I was writing minutes, so what did she just tell you to bring me? What did you tell her?
We can give her information.
Okay. Which one?
262. 531. Okay. We've had a vacant planning commission seat for a time. We had a few people that were interested. We had one individual in particular who has done a lot for the town over the years. Has always been involved in things and helping donate things to the police department and wrapping cars and doing a lot of things like that. Who's very hands-on, and we had some good people that I talked to that were interested. But I guess this one is just, I'd like to nominate Adam Mikowski for all the work that he's done through the years in town. And I think he would be a good fit. And I would like someone to make a motion.
Also move.
Second that motion.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Adam, are you here?
Yeah.
You don't know what you signed up for.
Fill you in.
Thank you.
Run.
Run.
Okay, next up, we have the request by the clerk's office to use some ARPA money for Badger books. We all have information that they gave us a lot of information, what they are, what they're not, what they do, why we need them. We all know that Tina and Heather know their stuff, and anything that we can help out that they need, I'm all in favor for. I mean, this is something that's really gonna help the elections go smoother. If your last name starts with S or beyond, you know that the lines can get quite long. And I think this is something that can cut down on that time for people, so they don't have to spend so much time standing in line. Make things a little bit easier. This is also not connected to the internet. So we've got a full pack of information. I'm gonna give anyone a chance to ask Tina any questions. Anybody up here have any questions or discussion on that at all? I believe the cost is about 24,000.
And 55?
No, plus the other one, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at
2316.
2316, sorry.
So there'll be 10,000. Like, yeah, about a little under 13,000 grand.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the Badger books with ARPA funds, not to exceed $13,000.
I'll second.
First and a second, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Tim, did you oppose?
No, I did that.
No, I made the second.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion of possible action, regarding vacation.
and the finish mower,
Finish more first. The John Deere.
Oh, I'm sorry,
the,
the mower. ARPA funds for the mower, that's the one, that's the.
Yeah, if you want to pass these down, we got a third bid. I talked to Jim and Ken Uhlenhick this morning, we have three bids. One is the John Deere, this is for mowing the park, it's a trifold mower, the old one is just about on its last leg, hard to get parts for. The John Deere is 24,150 approximately. Woods, the one I just, is 24,900, and the one I handed out is 26,400. The guys prefer the John Deere, it's the least expensive, but it also has a better attachment, hookup. And, so I would recommend that, we purchase or I'll make a motion to purchase the John Deere, mower for the DPW without using ARPA fund.
Without?
Using ARPA.
Oh, I'm
fund,
sorry.
I have a question, what about warranty?
Jim, any idea on warranties?
No idea on warranties. I don't think they carry a long warranty on a wear item like that.
Yeah, I suspect they probably don't either.
Okay.
And we trade the old one in and sell the old ones.
Sell the old one. We haven't really discussed that.
Yeah.
Probably sell that, just like we would the pickup truck, the other
Yeah,
5 pieces of equipment we need to get rid of.
that's moving right along, right?
Yeah.
But we wouldn't sell that until next spring after delivery, of course. Do we know what the, timeline is?
I think John Deere has one there right now.
So if we
We
approve
don't need
this,
it right away.
we could tie it up and get it.
I believe so.
We could advertise it with everything else. on the
That might be-
website.
Have the truck in the water tank.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
paint sprayer and.
Mhm. Okay, so we have a motion on that already?
Yep.
Second,
I'll second that.
any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah,
Okay.
he approved,
Okay,
right, Tim?
And then, if I can jump in on something, for informational purposes, it's not on the agenda, but speaking with the guys again this morning. They could use a piece of equipment that's kind of like a box scraper or drag that would be helpful at all the town parks, ball diamond. The infields tend to get growing with weeds, and it's spraying doesn't always do it, and who wants to use excessive amount of spray anyway on where kids are playing ball. So this would be something that would be pulled behind, it's 7 feet wide, so it would cover the tracks of the tractor tires when it was used. It'd be about $2,630. So it's just used for grooming the infield on both parks. And so we'd like to have this put on next month's agenda for consideration, but I just wanted to bring it up as long as the guys took the incentive to mention it as something they could really use. At the $2,600, maybe that's something we could still sneak in with our ARPA two at the
can
end.
you put that together with a couple other bids?
Yeah, do you think you can find any other, this would be from American Power.
Yes.
It's on Highway 83.
They're probably always been $100 each other, generally on something like that. Which is pretty close, but we can do that.
Yeah, we need, okay, if we could at least get another bid
Yeah.
or two, that would be helpful. Thank you so much. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Okay, next up, discussion possible action on vacation MOU. We, for next year.
Back in August, the Police Association presented us with an MOU regarding vacation at the end of the year. We countered that and have not heard anything back from the WPPA in the intervening 2 months since our last meeting. So I'm making a motion to withdraw that counter and revert to contract language as agreed upon.
Do I have a second on that?
Well, reluctantly second that. I was hoping that they would have something for us.
Can you make it a second?
Yes,
Okay.
reluctant second. Reluctant second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Opposed, none. Yeah, we do. Boundary Small Committee Group, I just wanted to, and I feel I spoke with you already. The next few boundary meetings, I feel it's time. I asked Bob, and we chose myself to sit in on those meetings just to make sure things are going the way you guys have done a really great job so far, and I really appreciate it. Just have a lot of questions that we need answered, and I think in the interest of time, if I was there as well, so we would have to post those meetings because it will be quorum, which is in the interest of time to get those questions answered while we're there and make sure that Eric Schmidtke from the state is also involved in that. So we don't have lingering questions and lingering issues that we've had going back and forth with the village. So I know you gave me a schedule the next few small committee meetings, so I'll be sitting on those as well, okay? Discussion possible action regarding police services. Also, Bob, you want to start that discussion?
With the updates that are the topic of our special meeting following this meeting, so that we can look at all of our options, I move that we repost the vacancy for our chief.
I have a second on that.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And you know what, I think I skipped Board of Health, but I'm just gonna say it's time to get your flu shot. I know that we're getting letters from the schools if the kids are behind in any thoughts. My kids are in age a year behind the grade, so I always get those letters that they didn't get their shots yet, even though they're not that age yet. So they're sending out the letters. Get your kids your immunizations, get your flu shot. If that's what you want to do, get it soon before we all get affected by the flu. And I do have public comment talking about police coverage. And Dan Egan, you want to come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record?
My name is Dan Egan, 32610 Sunburst Court. Been brought to our attention, or I guess we've heard rumors or whatever, my wife and I, that there's been some discussion and concern about how to go forward with the future of police services in the town of Waterford. I have not been able to attend meetings when I heard there was some discussion about that. We were out of town, we were out of state. I just wanted to provide a personal experience that I had with the Waterford PD and ask that you would take that into consideration as you go forward in discussing and determining what you are going to be doing in the future. January, it was the first week of January 2023, when I became a victim of identity theft. We were fortunate because we found out about it almost instantaneously, and we were able to stop the perpetrators from accessing our investment accounts as well as our bank accounts. We ended up deciding that something needed to be done. I checked out with the sheriff's department, checked out with the PD here to see what the best route would be. We ended up working with the PD here. And all I want to say is that I wish I would have gone with the sheriff's department. Because to make a long story short, and I'm not going to go into any big details, it was a horrible experience to go through identity theft. We ended up having bank reimbursed us for lost funds. But what was so disturbing about the experience is that we addressed it right away. we were told initially that, well, there was probably nothing. We'll look into it and we can do the same job that the county can do. But, you're probably, this was just your turn, and they're probably, out of the country, and there's nothing that really we can do about it, but we'll look into it. So we filed the claim, or what was it called? The report. And, then my wife, Jeannie, and with her experience and background career, started doing some sleuthing herself and working with the bank, the corporate offices of the bank, our broker, and local bank here. Within 2 weeks, we had identified the IP address and the residence address in Milwaukee where this occurred. We also had indication of, we knew when my debit card was used and where it was used. And all that information, we actually did more of the work, or did a lot of the work, provided it to the police department. And what ended up happening was, skip the middle part, and the middle part was a long part. Because as I said, this was January of 23. The report that went to Racine County from the police department did not go until February of 2024. 13 months later, even though that we were told during the course that things were being done, we found out, again, our sleuthing, that the individuals that were involved in this, it had turned into a federal situation because it was crossing state lines. And and because Racine County was contiguous to Milwaukee County, this took place in Milwaukee County, that there was, because of the contiguous relationship or whatever, that the Racine County or RPD could do some investigation. Anyway, over the course of time, we were misled. The report is in, it's gonna be done. Oh, we're gonna see if we can get this hooked up with the federal case, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing ever happened. I would call in and ask the person in charge what was going on. Well, we're gonna, give me a call back in a week, or I'll call you back in a week. Never heard anything. Call, and what I did get a call, I missed the call, I called back, and within a minute after I missed the call, talked to a secretary, and I say, I'd like to talk to Lieutenant, and she said, just a minute, and then she comes back and says, I'm sorry, he's not here. Well, I can hear him. Okay, then finally I do talk to him, and I say, I don't know what's going on. I'm not going away. This isn't going away. And I was actually told that, I wonder what, and he laughed, and then he said, I wonder what your neighbors would say if they knew how much time we were spending on your case, because you didn't even lose money. I said, there was money lost, but, and it was totally disrespectful. Finally, with the help of people from the top, the report supposedly was filed. Like I said, 13 months later. Now we're working with the county district attorney's office. And there was the victim's advocate office was phenomenal. And she'd get back, she got back to me and said, yeah, it was filed, but we got back to the Waterford PD and we needed some additional information. We haven't gotten anything back yet. So pushing it again a little bit. And, without help from, the top, it wouldn't have happened. That, piece of information finally got in. And the district attorney reviewed it and said, yep, it's a felony, and they decided to go forward. The problem was that by the time the county was going to go forward with it, the individual was gone. And so now there's an outstanding federal warrant. But this was something where they had expected that, that this was a group, a gang that was doing this. And it wasn't just us. That's what they're doing, lots of money. And lots of people, unfortunately for us, we were okay. I mean, we were kept whole, but I can't tell you the hours that we spent, Social Security, pensions, our real estate, all of our investments and changing all and passwords and all of the rest of the stuff, credit cards. Went through a lot of rigmarole. So when you're talking about whatever you're gonna do in the future, it's not, and I'm concerned about the discussion we had with Congressman. This stuff can happen here. We need police services, but we need quality police services who tell you the truth. That's all I wanted to say. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for your
I
comment.
have a question where, with your talks with, the people who are handling this, between those 13 months, were there other victims? This-
That I couldn't tell you, Dale, but we do know, essentially from the county, that there were it started to be some collaboration. This group was working in Neenah, Chippewa Falls, Minneapolis. And we think we know how they got our information. We think this was based on what we were told, that this is a back office bank, corporate bank situation where these people were hired. And they weren't working for the $15 an hour.
Or molds, huh? Whatever you wanna call it.
But can't prove anything. But the reality was that this individual, and we were able to, through CCAP, get this person's picture, and this is a low-level individual in this thing. If what was said was being done here was actually being done, that person would have been apprehended, and maybe through the investigation, some other things could have been found out. And this little thing that cost us, or could have cost us, a couple of $1,000, which really cost how many people, how much money? Maybe they could have busted that ring. I'm not talking about Chicago PD or something, but it was a little bit of work that I think never got done. And we had done most of the work with the bank, with the third party here, what was it? Zelle. And so anyway, thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dan.
Dan. Sorry for that experience.
Yeah. All right, any more public comments? No. All right, any forthcoming events?
No more public comment, sorry.
Any forthcoming events? Tim?
Tim, any
Fest
forthcoming
is
events?
coming up. Final Fest, November 2nd.
Okay. Okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Turn at 6:45 P.M.
All right, Tim, I'm gonna call you for the next one, okay?
The intersection.